My name is Lauren. I'm 42. And what happened between me and Jake, someone I thought I could fully open up to, still lingers in my mind like an unfinished song. We weren't strangers. Jake had been part of my life for nearly a year, and in that time, we'd moved beyond surface-level flirtations into something more meaningful. Both of us were cautious at first, each carrying the weight of past mistakes and quiet disappointments. But with Jake, I began to believe I could finally lower my guard. There was something about his presence that made me feel grounded again. The night he came over, I hadn't planned to say anything dramatic. I lit a few candles, let soft music play in the background. Nothing obvious, just a quiet invitation. The energy between us had always been gentle, slow-burning. That night, it felt heavier, more charged with possibility. When he stepped into my room, I watched how his eyes moved through the space. He didn't speak right away, just stood there as if waiting for something. He dropped his backpack near the door with a familiar thud and smiled when our hands brushed for a second too long. He started talking about his day, about the customer at the coffee shop who kept mispronouncing his name, about how suddenly cold the weather had turned. I listened, laughed at the right moments, and studied his face during the silences. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't hesitate. "I've been thinking about what I want," I said, my voice steady. He leaned in slightly, eyes soft with curiosity. "Yeah, not in a dramatic way," I added with a small smile. I don't want to keep guessing. I don't want halfway. I want to be able to say what feels good, what doesn't, when I want more or less. And I want you to feel safe doing the same." He didn't flinch. He didn't blink too much. He just nodded, like it was exactly what he needed to hear. So I kept going. "I don't want us to assume things just because we care. I want us to ask, to tell each other, to be sure." His fingers found mine again, and this time, he didn't let go. There was no rush. Everything about that moment felt real, grounded, honest. Like we weren't just setting the tone for the night, but laying the foundation for something that could last. And then something shifted. It was subtle at first. He shifted positions. Nothing major, just a small move. But it disrupted something inside me, like a record skipping right at your favorite part of a song. I had just told him what I needed, what felt right. And suddenly he was doing something different. I froze, not outwardly, but emotionally. It wasn't that I didn't trust him. I did. But for the first time, I'd felt truly heard. And now I found myself questioning if he'd actually been listening at all. He didn't notice the change at first. To him, it probably felt natural, like the next step. But to me, it was too soon. Out of rhythm. Offbeat. I wasn't angry. Just unsettled. I stayed quiet, watching him, waiting to see if he'd sense the shift, too. And then he looked at me, and I think he did. There was a flicker in his expression, a question he didn't voice.
"So I did."
"I told you exactly what I needed," I whispered, not accusing, just gentle. Jake sat back, thoughtful. "I thought I was doing it right," he said slowly. "You were," I nodded. "Until you weren't." That could have been the moment things fell apart. But it wasn't. It was a moment of choice. A chance to either keep going blindly or pause and learn. Jake didn't get defensive.
He didn't argue.
He just asked, "Where did I lose you?" And that changed everything. I told him that when I opened up, I wasn't just listing preferences. I was handing him a part of me. A part one didn't give away easily. And when he moved too quickly, it wasn't just a physical shift. It felt emotional, like he stopped being present with me. Like he decided what came next instead of waiting for us to reach it together.
He was quiet for a while.
Then said, "I thought I was supposed to change something. Make it better." "It already was better," I replied softly. "That's why I asked you not to change it." "Not yet." Jake exhaled slowly, as if he finally understood the weight behind my words. "I just wanted it to be perfect." "You don't have to be perfect," I said. "You just have to stay with me, right where we are." He nodded, slowly. And then something in him shifted again, but this time, in the right direction. He reached for my hand again, slower now. More intentional. And I felt it. He wasn't just touching me, he was returning to the moment. Everything that followed was different.
His pace.
His attention, the way he waited for my cues, not to perform but to connect. Every pause was filled with awareness, not awkwardness. He was present, truly present, and it made everything feel whole again. I began to whisper the little things I liked, where to stay, when to slow down. And every time, he listened, not with obedience, but with care, with presence. I noticed how his touch changed, how he started reading more than just my words. He noticed my breath, the small tilt of my shoulders, the unspoken signals. And he didn't miss them anymore. That overwhelmed me, in the best possible way. It reminded me how rare it is to be seen like that, not just observed, truly felt. For the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was responding, because he had stopped guessing. He was listening. There was no need to fill the silence after that. The quiet between us wasn't empty. It was safe, full of trust. He looked at me with a kind of calm focus I'd never seen from him before. It wasn't about impressing me anymore. It was about showing up. Fully. For me. And that meant more than anything else. I leaned into him and whispered, "That's it." He smiled, not with pride, but gently, as if he understood something vital. That connection doesn't come from grand gestures. It's born in those quiet moments when someone chooses to stay instead of rush ahead. When they choose to feel instead of assume. We stayed like that for a while. His hand in mine. The air soft and still around us. And I realized then, love doesn't always need words. Sometimes, it lives in the way someone returns to you after a misstep. In how they recalibrate. In how they choose you, not just in theory but in action. Jake didn't get everything right the first time. But he cared enough to pause, to ask, to truly listen. And that was everything. Because love doesn't grow through perfection. It grows in the pauses. In the listening. In the coming back. And in that quiet space between what I said and what he learned, we found something real.